All right, you guys hear me this morning?
Hear you, Dale.
Great. I'm on my laptop today and it's all different.
It's okay. Ben looks like he's throwing stuff on top of the beach because it's, all we see is his hands magically throwing stuff on the sand.
Trying to make myself a cup of coffee and trying to make sure you guys don't hear all the racket I'm making.
All righty.
I'll take one, Ben. Thanks for offering.
Yeah, I got to remember I'll get all the windows opened up here so I can see everybody. All right.
I'm cold by the time it gets to you, Mark.
A little water and I'll be set.
Ooh, Dale, you left a pretty cool visage behind when you left.
Seriously, it looked like a cloaked individual sitting at your desk.
Oh, really? I didn't even pay attention to those. That was my chair. Oh, it just went to the far background. That's interesting.
Well,
All right.
that's not actually what I did a minute ago, but that's interesting too.
Well, when you play back the recording, you'll see what happens.
Okay, we'll cut that part out. Here we go. Low Code Campfire, episode 23 from October 15, 2021. This is Suite 16, the main topic. Suite 116, we've just released 116. And so anything that's 116 related, or of course anything else, we'll cover today. Same crew here. So, but this is for the recording. This is a weekly gathering that we do. We get together, share techniques, challenges, and all skill levels are welcome. We've got all these recorded, and so you can access them on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/plantanat. And you should subscribe to that. We have a pretty informal agenda. We say hi, and then it's an open format. Jump in, show and tell. We've got Campfire contributions. That's a new segment we can now go over every week. If you got a lot of noise going on, like the dog barking in the background, you can mute yourself. If the cat jumps in your lap, then that's usually okay. If you have questions, topics, feedback, we have a link that we try and put into just about everything. And I see everybody who's here today has been here before. So we'll just say hello. We don't need to do introductions.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
We are still on Capterra reviews. And so if you haven't had a chance to get your $20, we'll buy you lunch if you tell us what you think about Plantain. So first call, what's on your mind? What's going on this week? What do you think of, most of you were at the cafe, heard about 116 out, saw a little bit of demo of features, anything, what's going on with you?
So, Dale, I have a quick note for you. You had just mentioned we should subscribe to the YouTube channel. I did do that to all the YouTube channels associated with Plantain App and DNN Sharp. I don't get stuff from YouTube. I don't know if anyone else has a problem. That's kind of hit or miss, but mostly not. I just thought I'd mention it in case you might want to send out your own emails when you update stuff like that.
That's interesting because, of course, we put up at least 2 videos a week, this one and Cafe. And so just as they're released, I would have thought that they would show up and...
I have the same result. I don't get any notifications from YouTube when you post things.
All right, so I got to look into that.
You know, that's a common thing. You know, Facebook doesn't send out all the notifications, even though you're subscribed. Now, YouTube's not doing it. It doesn't seem. Comes down to you got to take care of that stuff yourself these days.
Yeah, there is a email notification permission inside of YouTube. If you go to your settings, it says send me emails about YouTube activity and updates. But that's just the ones I requested. But to everybody else, I don't get them periodically either. I just have to go into YouTube and see the old 1, 2, or 3 red indicator that's showing something new.
Interesting. All right. Yes, I'll see what I'll make sure we're doing the right things on our end. And then if there's if there's something that you can do on your end, we'll mention that as well.
If I could jump in on the YouTube thing, the one thing I haven't subscribed, so I don't know about the email situation, but I will say one thing. All of the other topics you have, they're easy to find. This one, the Campfire, is not. They're intermixed with everything else. So if you want to just find Campfire, like I can click on low code feature focus, I can click on low code cafe. There's no topic for the Campfire.
Interesting. Well, so let's start with that. So I got to be me. I got to flip identifiers here. Oh, wow. So we have we should have a channel there. Excuse me, there's a playlist that's low code Campfire is where they are all. Don't talk. So you say you just can't find Campfire things, that they're all in the mix.
Oh, I see. So you have to go into there. See, like if you're on the home of the Plantain app, if you scroll down, there's like categories. So you have the play all, then you have get started with Plantain app, then underneath that low code feature focus, underneath that low code cafe, and then uploads. There's no Campfire there. That's where I was looking.
I don't know. Okay, that's something good to look at. I don't know how that works, but making notes. Okay, perfect.
How do you guys search for a topic of interest in this screen you're looking at there, Dale?
Right here.
What will that find? Are the words that were used in the video in there?
A little of both. Of course, we put all the chapters in, but let's say we were talking about, what is it, Apollo, like something at random here, and it'll take you right to the episodes that had Adalo. So, but yes, that's kind of another good one if you haven't done it, if you don't know. That they automatically transcribe everything, so you can go to subtitles and pick the auto-generated English, and so then when you're playing back, and so typically I turn that on and then run it at high speed, something faster than normal speed, and it's a good way to find what you're looking for. There's also a way, I think, to download all those words and timings, but I don't know if that's just on our side or.
Those words are included. Okay, and they're included in the search. All those transcribed words.
I don't know for certain.
Okay. Yeah. I just need to get better at that. I get to that screen with all the video thumbnails, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed. Like, how am I going to find the word that I'm looking for in all this?
Yep, but typically, since we bookmark all the topics, this is the best search that I found to get to something. If you're looking for,
Okay, I'll be using it.
okay, cool, great. So, I'm sorry. Any other first call stuff we need to get into?
I have a question, but I don't know if it's a first call.
Well, let's go. Ask
I
it.
mean, oh, okay. I was gonna say, does that mean ask me a question?
I'm sorry.
Just a real quick thing. I know there's a way to convert a loaded entity into a JSON string. Is there a way to do that with a token? So if you have a token that has a bunch of sub properties to it, so token name, colon, whatever, same token name, colon, something else, that token object, is there a way to convert that into a JSON string?
I don't know. Do you have you tried any of it?
I've played around with it. I haven't been able to do it successfully. So I don't know if there's a trick to it or a step I'm missing. I don't know.
So the answer, I mean, first answer is I don't know. I know you, until I built that custom action from last week, I didn't have any way of iterating through them. But that custom action would allow you to iterate through all tokens, and so there's I mean, there are ways it's possible, but I don't know if out of the box would do it.
And are you looking for something to just run through all the pieces of token without having to call them out? Is it to get all the properties in one?
Well, basically what I'm trying to do is, let me see if I can say this without sounding too complicated. I'm trying to create a mini application, put it that way, where I'm going to need to pass parameters for it to function correctly based off of internal tokens that it's going to process within my mini app. The thing is, those parameters are dynamic. They could be anything. So what I'm trying to do is be able to create a token with all of the sub properties on it with the values I need to pass, convert that into a JSON string, and then pass the JSON string over to the MyToken, which will then recompile that JSON string into a token and then use them. So it's basically token to JSON, JSON back to token is what I'm trying to do. I can get the JSON to token, I just can't get the token to JSON.
And what I had to do that in a call is take the token and load it into an entity property by property, the sub property, and then build a new entity string, and then convert that out to JSON.
Yeah, I haven't done that. See, I'm trying to avoid the multiple steps if it's not necessary. I mean, I did try another way, which was instead of loading a token directly and assigning everything, I tried using load entity using SQL and then just do a select statement, you know, with hard coding, whatever my values are. So it returns one entity and then load that. But the problem is that when you convert that into JSON, what ends up happening is you have to give the original item a name. So for argument's sake, let's say data. So everything will become data colon, and then your array is underneath that instead of just giving you one flat token or one flat record rather for JSON. It's trying to give you an array. That's not necessary because it's only one record.
It's different than the way I'm doing it. I'd have to go look at my code to see if I get that array title or if I get the same result. It's been a while since I built that. I use it to build some API calls that are pretty complex where I have to pass JSON into.
Oh, wrong one. Okay. So this thing that I was starting to show last week, this get tokens to JSON, is like half of where I think you want to go then. So I have first name, last name with the values of A and B, and what it comes out, and then when you click the button, it's converting everything that's on this form, all of the context, into JSON. So we were getting first name A, last name B, the single file upload, which doesn't have anything, and then I added a user's entity in the middle of all that to prove that it would pick up anything from the context. Anyway, I was trying to do, I think, the same thing that you're trying to do. This is one form of output where we're outputting first name and A, but you can't like load this back in as a JSON to tokens. So a slightly different format where it came out with first name : A, last name : B, where it's ready to load back into tokens. So I think that's where I was going as one of the options for my custom action, which I just haven't built yet. So that you could, whatever the context is, you could just wrap it all up and pass it as a JSON string to the next thing that needs to process it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Not really, because you're looking at it from a much larger perspective, as in the whole context. I don't need the whole context. If I just design one token,
Yep.
that's all I want. I just want to be able to take that one token and expand it out into a JSON string without having it look like an array. So for argument's sake, like right after that bracket, you would have a field name : another bracket, and then all of your items. So if you use it the way it's built now, that's what tends to happen, is you get a field name and then there's an array within it. I don't need an array because I know it's just one record. I just want it flat, one string
And
values.
what is it a database token that you're trying to work with? Is that?
No, just a straight created a token and put properties into the same token name. So, you know, like token name : and then something, same token name : something else. It's just a inject data. And I just built one parent token with a bunch of little properties attached to it.
Okay. So I'll ask the question. If I can get a hold of Radu, it's amazing what he knows how to do. Again, one, I don't want to belabor this too much. One of the things that I would like to do, it's again not in the product, but this get context, is to get it, allow it to focus in on, I mean, not the entire context. You might not always want to pass in the entire thing. So be able to specify a single token name might get you there. But if there's a built-in way to do it, that would be far better. So anyway, I will work to get an answer on that one. Good one. All right, I wanted to recognize contributions because we've had a couple. Mark contributed over since last week the useful form open for getting the device fingerprint. So this run a button on a form open. You see it pop up with a form briefly, and then it says the device fingerprint is. So behind the scene, I mean, it tells what it's doing, but behind the scenes, there's a button, there's the form opens. It solves the problem of the device fingerprint not being available on a NIT. But really, you could use that for any variety of needing to press a button in an automatic situation, whether it was on init or on change, any of those places where you can put JavaScript. Mark, it's your contribution. You want to comment at all?
Yeah, you described it well, Dale. I also thought you could maybe get other pieces of information that also required to happen on a form submit other than the device fingerprint. So yeah, it's useful for several things. A comment I would put here in this conversation would be, I wound up trying to format the page to kind of make it look nice, and I went back and forth to the other pages, and I guess my comment would be, it would be nice if we had some sort of standard format for the page and standard components on the page, so that when we're looking through, we can find stuff easier, I guess. Like a description might always be in the same kind of place on the page.
Yeah, I agree. And perhaps if we did a template page and then just could copy the template page, at least you're right. It is a little bit Wild West. We kind of focused on getting it working rather than.
And it's not it's not a criticism. It's sort of like an evolution. Hey, why don't we standardize a little bit here?
I was real glad on the first one that Ben contributed and had a very nice. I mean, I've been stealing his layout, div, whatever, to in the same way. And by the way, if you guys haven't figured it out yet, I'm a black and white guy, not a design guy. So as long as the words read correctly, I don't care what it looks like, and that's probably not very good in the big scheme of things. So I'm glad there's other people with talents to do that stuff. I added a contribution that was that shows how to do the half of the puzzle that Ben was talking about, where we where you take what's inside of an entity. Before I understood how to do this, I iterated through the entity to pull information out of it, which isn't very efficient. And so this shows is a screenshot of what's inside, but I've got a user's entity that I put into a user's entity list. I'm sorry, into users JSON under the name users. Too many users in there, I guess, but if you click the button, that's what it's doing. And then again, you can take a look at what comes out of it. So again, just demonstrating how to see what's inside of an entity, potentially use it that way.
How would we make a comment on that, Dale?
Yeah.
Wait.
Sorry, how would you make a comment?
Yeah, you commented on mine earlier today. I'm like, how did he do that?
Good. So within contributions, there's the contribution comment thing. Mm-hmm. And so you can open it to a new screen, and it shows you all the comments for it. And then you can just come in here and say add. And when it does it, anybody, this is where we were kind of working last week. I'm working on improving the notification. Currently, it goes out to anybody, the owner, and anybody who has also commented on it. But we're going to let you subscribe to them.
Good.
Dale, is that kind of a way to, I needed to have a JSON and then amend that current JSON by adding a few parameters and create a new output with those two new parameters in what I fed it first? Would you do it through that create JSON object? Does that make sense?
You can manipulate an entity and add properties and rows to it. So if you have it as an entity, you can add content to it there and then convert it to an entity list when you're done. That's one technique.
Is that the best way to amend a JSON format or a entity, if you will? I hate entities that can be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have a JSON string, what do you do with it?
Yeah, I have the JSON string. I need to amend it by adding a few new parameters to just that JSON string and output a new JSON string with those 2 new parameters added to the original one.
So from what I know, I think, yes, if you convert the JSON into an entity, the ability to add rows or properties to JSON is very straightforward, and then converting it back to a JSON is, I mean, you could do all of that in 4 actions. There might be a better way, but I certainly don't want to do string manipulation.
Right.
If you refer back to, I think Reza demonstrated a technique using, and Radu has as well, incorporating there was a JSON parsing library in one of the low-code cafes, I think. That would be another way. For me, I like to stay within the product. So doing it in 4 actions would probably be the way I would approach it. Anyone else have a?
Okay. Do you, those 4 actions, what would they?
So yeah, let's take a look at that. I wish I hadn't closed that out. So let's say that we have this, we want to extend it into something. So we have a JSON string. I'm going to go to my standard play area here. I miss my home internet a little faster.
You're out traveling the world?
Yeah, Amarillo, Texas. It's great.
Very nice.
Family reunion tomorrow for my wife's side. Okay, so if we were to have a text that is, let's say, a large text, and the initial value is this stack of JSON that we have, and we're going to call it JS initial. And so we save that so far and take a look at it. So it's just going to show all our JSON. Great. So if we were to add a button so we can do some actions, first action would be create first load entities JSON. The model would be, well, I can't remember what I called it. JS initial. It's going to create JS entity. So that's action one. The next would be entities.
That's on air. You're doing it on air.
Thank you for saving me. Entity,
Well, you've done that 1,000 times.
extend entity. We're going to extend JS entity and add height, weight. We'll default them to 0. And then we need to create JSON object that's going to be, I'm just going to put it back. No, I'm going to call it, it doesn't matter. We're going to give it JS entity as a JSON object, put it back into JS initial, and then update form Ajax. So if I've come anywhere close here, this should add a couple of properties when we submit it.
You marked it as a JSON object. Shouldn't it have been an entity list?
Probably. Just because I document this stuff doesn't mean I have it committed to me. Keep me up. That one?
Correct.
And yeah, if I go back to my example, that's exactly right. In the list. Save, try again.
Cursor down. There it is.
Yeah, it added the last one. So I mean, that's kind of.
Yep. Nope. That gives me everything. I appreciate it. No, that's perfect. That's exactly what I needed. In 3 steps instead of 4.
Okay. Well, yeah. And there's been some other videos. I think it was Campfire last time or two that we talked about entities and had some other examples.
Yep. Nope. That's perfect.
Okay, cool.
Appreciate you.
Sure, came close anyway. So that's 2 new contributions to the 2 new ones that we had Campfire last week. So I am going to tabs to the right. What else do we have? Anything about version 116? Anything you're excited about? You want to take? We can take a look at the change log too. I thought that might be useful. See what's there, and so new features: the Facebook, Google login. I haven't played with that one yet. It doesn't look too hard to do. Just something to configure. We seem to get some good feedback to listings and a pop-up.
Yeah, I'll be using that.
I'm real happy to see the stack of bug fixes out I mentioned the other day. It's we've kind of had a log jam on some of the bugs, and you guys probably know that as well as anyone, but I just heard from Bogdan last week, who he may be joining us as we go here. He had some other things in the first half hour, but that it looks like a good part of the sprint the next sprint is going to be the smaller bug fix things that have been on hanging, languishing a little bit. So yeah, we saw this load entity SQL being able to be initialized, and we demonstrated that one. Then there was another one on one of the community forum posts, I think, the question about how to initialize an entity. Did you ever divine the answer to that one?
I don't recall which one you're referring to.
Well, the question was, if you had an entity that has been built up and you want to explicitly initialize it. So load entities with SQL now has the checkbox where you can say, I want to start in a fresh list. Mm-hmm. And so that solves the problem if you're talking about load entities SQL. But if you had an entity and you wanted to just initialize it and you don't want to use load entities SQL, I figured out a way to do that. And it's very easy. You just got to think like the developers did, right? If you do the action we were just working with, create entity from JSON and put a left bracket, right bracket into it as the model, that will initialize it.
I must have missed that question. I'm looking in there and I'm not seeing it. Not sure where it is.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where we got into that, but it was kind of a side note to some other question that we were trying to address.
Oh, that's probably why, because I'm looking for like the question titles and I'm like, I'm not seeing this. If it was a side one that I wasn't initially a part of the conversation, I may not know.
I'm sorry, I thought I called you out because I thought perhaps you had, but in any case, not that this is part of the this load entities JSON can be used like this to create so if you had before this step, if you had an entity called XYZ entity and it had content in it, after this it would be empty because that represents an empty JSON. So it's a way to zap an entity. There's no, I don't think we have a clear entity action type.
Yeah, I wish I had thought of doing that because that's why I'm so happy with the whole load entity being able to reinitialize it to blank, because I've tried even the delete and with the remove entity items, the filter has to be an exact match.
Right.
You can't just say, delete everything or delete what doesn't match. It's delete what equals, and then it's the only option available. So that's bitten me quite a few times.
And I know that you've put in a feature request to have a more robust, let's see, this would be remove entities, only lets you remove based on a match, which is what you were just describing. So you might have to, for example, create a property on an entity just for the purpose of figuring out which one you're going to delete, right? And then,
which is exactly what I've done, but then the property gets stuck there,
right?
Because you then can't remove a property from an entity.
And in your case, you're working with dynamic columns, right?
Yes.
Maybe.
In my particular case, I was loading from a CSV. I didn't know how many columns was coming in. So what I did is I extended the entity by adding a column at the end, which then gave the information I needed on whether the row needed to be deleted or not, then remove those rows but then I got stuck with that extra entity column at the end that I couldn't remove. So when I exported it, I just told people, you got to delete that last column.
Yeah. So I remember that. I don't know if this would work for you or whether you spent any time here, but this remap entity list will also let you take an entity. If you've got a left side, and I mean, if you have an entity and you want to create a new entity out of it, you can say map the columns, and so it's an extra step, and it ends up copying it from A to B. But in this mapping entity will tell it how to map it, and so you could omit the column. I mean, it's a kind of a very roundabout way to delete the extra column, but so if you have a source A and a mapping entity called map, the map would need to say all the columns that you want to include, and you could rename them in the process as well, and then so the map would have a source and a target. So the column name as it's coming in, the column name as it's going out, and then the resulting entity. So if you had columns A, B, and C in there, and your mapping entity only mentioned A and B, C would get omitted from the resulting entity. So it's a way to drop a column, as well as rearrange columns and rename columns. I say rearrange, I haven't tested that. Certainly rename. So anyway, I think there is a way to do that. You'd have to dynamically build the mapping entity as well, since you have dynamic columns. It's always more of a challenge when it's dynamic, isn't it?
Dynamic makes it great for making things work for a bunch of different scenarios, but it makes maintenance a whole lot harder sometimes.
Absolutely. So you tell me, I can run through some of these other bugs that were and enhancements that were dealt with, or we can talk about any other topic that amuses you. No one has anything burning, even not burning? All right.
And now that I found the unmute button, I do.
Oh, hi.
So I'm hoping it's just simple that I just can't find it. In the dashboard tiles where you run a query or have they tied to a query and give you a count of something in the record. Is there a way to make those links so that somebody can click on that? And now with the new open a grid in a pop-up, see what that data is?
So I know just enough about these to be dangerous. Does anybody know? Anybody fool much with dashboards that we already know the answer in advance? Otherwise, we can spend a minute on it.
So what is it that you wanted to do with this dashboard?
Still with us, Jim?
I have to find that unmute button again. What I was trying to do was get a tile configured so that the user could see a count of, in my case, it's shipments that are inbound. How many shipments do they have that they could then look at it and pop up and see the list of what they want. And I just haven't figured out how to configure a link to one of those dashboards or those tiles.
So
I
you're
was-
able to configure the tile, but you want to be able to have a link so that when they click on the tile, it sends them somewhere with more
Right.
details.
Yeah.
So drill down.
It's funny because I only started playing with the tiles today myself for the so it's funny you mentioned it, but I don't know of a way to do a link. What I would like to see is the ability to also pick something other than an entity or a direct table. Like I'd like to be able to write my own SQL.
So I wonder if you could build a link. See, it wouldn't be, I don't know if it'd be a good drill down to the number, but whether you could build a link here.
I know that in some cases we've made the ability for a tile to filter a grid that's below it. So you click a tile and you filter the grid that's below it. And so I think you could use that, and that was done with JavaScript. And I think we could probably do some JavaScript that would be on, in the that would be in the settings for the card, so that when you click the card, it would open the grid pop-up. I think that sounds like that'd be possible. I don't know. What do you think, Dale?
Well, so yeah, if you've used it, absolutely. If you're doing it as a JavaScript as a drill down, maybe you could find an example. That'd be something that you could share with us. Not necessarily today, but maybe next time.
So if you were to wrap that, you put an href around there.
Yeah.
So if you were to wrap that like with a button or something, could it have actions like for what Ben's looking? What I think I heard Ben say he was looking for. But then he also wants a different data source.
Yeah, no, for me, I was just looking at other data sources.
Yeah.
I just playing here, exploring whether something as simple as this could help. No, didn't like that. So the note I'm taking is drill down. Okay, is what you're trying to do, Jim, is that a drill down or is that something else?
Well, what I wanted to do was ideally, in version 1.15, I was going to redirect to a page. In version 1.16, I would pop up a grid. So that might be execute a JavaScript when I link on it, or something like that. But,
okay, and just repeating, Patrick, you think we could, where to add JavaScript?
Yeah. We definitely have configured tiles that will filter a grid by adding URL parameters. So yeah, I think we could accomplish the same thing by putting in JS to open the grid.
And where
think it's
did you were you configuring the template?
Yeah, in the template. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Basically in the same place that that I was working, just configuring it for JavaScript. Okay, well, yeah. If you if you
know where the sample is, and I just can't remember the name of the app. It's one of our demo apps, and I'm just having a little trouble remembering the name of it right now. But
okay, if you find it and if you want to present it, that would be great. If you wanted to send it to me, I'll add it as a contribution on the Campfire tab as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Either way. And so that would be great for drill down or pop up. I like it. I like it. Good question. What else? Ten minutes left, at least. Let's look at enhancements here. There's a major enhancement coming in version 117. Ben asked us to spell occurred correctly, and I used it as an opportunity to. A year ago, Bogdan told me how to get in and change the code through the GitHub and all. Had a nice video, and I had I didn't have enough time to get into it. So anyway, I finally loaded our code and found every occurrence of that and fixed it. Got pulled into the code. I felt like a developer rock star. So enhancement. So execute actions on entity list. Now you can continue on error, added error messages. I don't know what that one is. It's an internal improvement. Our dependency tree that Bogdan showed off. Action number in a workflow. This one, these small enhancements here in workflows are really, I think, useful. Because I don't know if you encountered it before, but like when we renamed get column, the name of when you add something like this is an inject data item, it gives the title immediately. But then if you change it to something else, you don't really know what kind of a thing this is. And now it's telling us you're editing a action of type load entities SQL. So it's kind of keeping its original identity so you can at least know what it is when you're looking at it and what its ID is. So those are two nice pieces of the puzzle.
It's nice. I noticed that too.
Yeah, because I like to comment things. And so I would jump in like on this one and say, well, I want to get the columns entity. If you think about the action stacks in action form, for example, that it always shows you what kind of thing it is, plus your comment, your title. And now this one is doing the same thing as well. Maybe not from a high level, but at least once you drill into it. So that's nice.
Maybe add a hover tooltip if it's possible.
I'll throw that out as a, can we do it?
Because I know screen real estate is at a premium there since they're small boxes. So some of those actions might be very wordy, but if you hover over it and see what the underlying action is, then you wouldn't have to drill in.
So I didn't realize originally that you could also resize these things. So I mean, that's not necessarily a great answer either. I liked the tooltip one that you just mentioned, but this is another one. And then if you didn't have it, there's also this thing where you can add a comment. Let's see if I can't even grab. Okay, so you can put it anywhere and make it any size. So if you want to do kind of a call out comment, so particularly when I have an execute actions on entity list or something that does a whole lot of stuff under the covers, I tend to use a call out like that to really bring your attention to it, either during development or for somebody to follow. Cool. Better support for connection strings. These new features. DNN 910. Yeah, we had a fun one here. Citizen developer could promote themselves to admin. We really didn't figure that was a good plan. So closed a little security hole. And then 961 is the minimum on this one. It will not run under 961. Great. Let's see what else. This was, and I think this was a feedback comment, and I think Roberto, who's on the call, made this one. Yep. And so it's kind of talking about automating the import or export of objects between instances and making code shareable and downloadable. I mean, overall, I think we touched on this one a little bit last week, but overall, this is where we're going, but we're taking steps to get there. I saw a demo of it this morning, the ability to import, like where we're going on our startup page, is that you'd be able to start a new app and then import a template, which is importing based on a GitHub repository. So in the first iteration, it would be, we would fill up that repository with a demo, a working application. So you'd click a button, you'd get a working application, a copy of it that you'd then be able to do something with. So that's kind of a first step. We also want to get to where we can create a instance based on be able to use it to clone an instance. So you point to your development GitHub, for example, and be able to make a clone of your development environment, clone of your production environment, maybe is a better case. But moving individual parts and pieces, I don't know if we've where that is on the roadmap. We're doing a good job. This is a feature we added some time ago, last, I don't know, 112, 113, that was particularly, again, a Ben suggestion, to being able to export and import modules. So that works out pretty well. Those new actions to export and import JSON, but that doesn't help much with entities and workflows, tokens, jobs. I think the overall statement is this: it's where we're going, but we don't have a really clean way to do that now. It really requires a lot of same manual effort, I think, that you're probably doing now. Anyone else dealing with that? And I think we've talked about it a little bit before. I mean, basically, you just have to dig in and transfer the work manually, right?
I'm upcoming to have to deal with that moving between environments. So it'd be nice if there was a little checklist somewhere of all the little gotchas that people have found.
That is another thing that came up talking about. I mean, we're talking about gotchas with this particular area, and that's another thing that came up this week. We're talking about, and it's probably going to have a home on the community portal, but known issues where for things that we know that are so just whatever known issues are for the product at particular versions to be able to publish those so that you don't bang your head against something that that we've already identified and we're going to fix, but it doesn't make sense for you to have to spend the time to rediscover that. Because there are gotchas with some of this stuff. Currently are, for example, in workflows, pretty sure this is true. Workflows, we're still identifying workflows by ID number. When you move them from one system to another, you could export a workflow from one system, import it into another system, and it's still referring to the workflow by number. So if the numbering isn't exactly the same on the production system as the development system, for example, that you could lose the link to the correct workflow. So there are gotchas. Okay. Final thoughts. Anything you'd like to see next time? We're just ready to get off into the weekend.
See what the
All
next
right.
week pulls in.
Sir?
Yeah, we'll see what happens during next week. Always something new.
All right. I will keep watching on what's going on contributions and add a couple myself and challenge you to get involved there too. All right. Very good. I'm just going to say happy Friday. Thanks for showing up to Low Code Campfire, and we will, whoops.
Dale?
The right thing for now. Yeah.
Good to see everybody.
Yep. Thanks,
All
Dale.
right.
Have a good weekend.
See you all next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.